Also breaking tonight, stunning new details on those 5 top Taliban commanders that President Obama freed from Gitmo as part of a prisoner exchange, and their ties to Al-Qaeda and the September 11th attacks on America. This new reporting reveals that all 5 of these terrorists had significant ties to Al-Qaeda before they were captured. Plus, it is likely that the 9/11 attacks that killed 3,000 Americans may never have happened without the help of this murderer, one of the terrorists, who is now free. Our chief intelligence correspondent, Catherine Herridge, explains. Catherine?
Megan, according to the 9/11 Commission and military files, in the week before the 9/11 attack, the Taliban and Al-Qaeda began neutralizing their opposition in Afghanistan. On September 9, 2001, the leader of the U.S.-backed Northern Alliance, Ahmad Shah Massoud, was killed by an Al-Qaeda suicide bomber. On September 10th, former Guantanamo detainee Mohammed Fazl, after consulting with an Al-Qaeda senior commander, began a major military offensive. The following day, with the U.S.-backed Northern Alliance on its heels and the threat of retaliation apparently reduced, 19 hijackers took over 4 jets and murdered nearly 3,000 Americans.
I think we have to keep in mind here there's a lot of discussion about the Taliban and Al-Qaeda and the relationship between the two. One of the things you have to do is look at the biographies of all 5 of these guys, and it becomes very clear that all 5 were very closely tied to Al-Qaeda prior to 9/11.
This week, Mrs. Clinton, along with other administration officials, downplayed the risk of transferring the men.
These 5 guys are not a threat to the United States. They are a threat to the safety and security of Afghanistan and Pakistan. It's up to those 2 countries to make the decision once and for all that these are threats to them.
While none of the documents comes close to suggesting Fazl knew about the 9/11 plot in advance, critics say that in the administration's rush to transfer the men, they sidelined the intelligence and freed a man who may have facilitated the 9/11 plot. Megan?
Catherine Herridge, thank you. Well, those 5 terrorists, of course, were traded for Sergeant Bo Bergdahl. Today, he spent his first day back in America after 5 years in captivity. Bergdahl arriving at a military hospital in San Antonio, Texas, early this morning, beginning the next phase of his rehabilitation. Army doctors saying Bergdahl is making progress.
I would emphasize, we see him as a normal, healthy person who has survived this 5-year ordeal by relying on his internal coping skills and resilience.
He appeared just like any sergeant would when they see a 2-star general, a little bit nervous, but he looked good, and again saluted and had good deportment.
Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters is a Fox News strategic analyst. Ralph, good to see you tonight. And so what we're being told is that Bergdahl has reportedly said he was locked in solitary confinement for 2 straight years. He didn't see another human face for that entire time. And now he is in stable condition but being evaluated by mental professionals. Your thoughts?
Well, the administration does not want a court-martial. At a court-martial, under oath, some very embarrassing things would come out, and some embarrassing things for the Army, too. So what they're trying to do is establish a narrative where this is really a nice young, mixed up but nice young man. He had a little problem here. He's got some mental frailty, but he means well, and he's suffered enough. They want to slide him through the system without that court-martial. Now, to paraphrase Hillary Clinton, what does it matter? Well, Megan, it matters because you can't establish a precedent for future soldiers that desertion in the face of the enemy is no big deal. So I just feel like we're being taken for a ride with this. Now, again, soldiers want justice. I personally am perfectly happy with, after the court-martial, a pardon, and Bergdahl goes home and he's a barista in Oregon and everybody's happily ever after, I guess. But what offends me is the fact that he is getting better, more specialized care than our wounded warriors, the real soldiers. And that is grotesquely offensive. And secondly, our president has never paid such attention to the families or members of the families of those who died in the line of duty or who were gravely wounded. So I just feel this has gotten totally out of proportion. He needs to go before a court-martial, let military law judge, and then we'll see. But the administration wants to give him a general discharge, retire him with full benefits for life at the taxpayer expense. You watch.
He's getting the top care right now, which is ironic when you consider what's happened to the veterans who served out without any possibility of walking off when they came back. I want to ask you this, Ralph. The situation in Iraq tonight, very, very grave.
Yeah, it's very grave, and I've been hearing from friends inside the system. They're horrified. They are mortified. The intelligence community has been briefing Obama and his team, NSC team, for months on this, Megan. And a friend of mine was just distraught when he spoke to me. He said, we still, and this is as of today, we still cannot convince the president that this is serious. And another friend is really concerned.
He doesn't want to go back into Iraq, Ralph. What of that? He said, we're not putting boots back on the ground in Iraq, and the American people probably don't have the stomach for that.
No, they might, you know, a leader's job is to persuade people. Now, right now, we do have Iranian boots on the ground. That is now confirmed. The Iranians are rushing to shore up the Maliki government. But what I'm worried about, and you mentioned it earlier, is that as Obama looks away and plays golf in Palm Springs, we are seeing the establishment of the first terrorist state, a caliphate that is run by butchers, people, a group, ISIS, so violent that Al-Qaeda has disowned it. And it's a big state stretching from central Syria to Baghdad. And, you know, another friend of mine, and I wish I could give you names, but I can't because you understand that, but his feeling is that there's a very good chance our embassy will be attacked before Obama does a single thing.
That is extremely serious, and we are getting reports out of the Pentagon tonight that those in the embassy, some are very concerned about their own safety, but that they are not being evacuated. The way it's been put is it's too politically sensitive to evacuate them.
Well, this could make Benghazi look like chump change.
Ralph, I want to ask you about this because they're talking about this group. They say, this is the Washington Post reporting on this terror group, death was everywhere in Mosul, mass beheadings. UN Human Rights Chief says they are extremely alarmed, talking about the unfathomable brutality of this group that is a, quote, liability to the Al-Qaeda brand. I mean, as you point out, that's how bad it is. What should we be doing? I mean, I realize the president's in Palm Springs. It's business as usual, doesn't want to panic anybody, but we've got thousands of American lives in Baghdad right now.
Well, the president and all the president's men and women need to face the reality of this earth, that the most intoxicating drug is blood. And these people have a taste for blood, and they are going to keep on killing, and they are going to come for us in good time. And what could we do? Well, we need to recognize what's in front of our faces, this emerging terrorist state. And airstrikes, drones, I hear a lot talk about drones. Drones are pop guns. There are now not 3,000 or 5,000. There are 15 to 20,000 active fighters in Iraq because they're gathering Sunni militias who are also mad at Maliki. This is a real disciplined, tough fighting force. And the only chance we have, if you're not going to put boots in the ground, is air power, airstrikes sustained in depth against their base in Syria and Iraq.
Wow. The president wants international cooperation on this. He called the Prime Minister of Canada today to discuss it. Ralph, I got to go.
Thanks, Megan.